Hello and welcome to the 2025 Ursula K. Le Guin Prize for Fiction. On behalf of my family and the Ursula K. Le Guin Foundation, I'm so happy to have you here to celebrate this annual $25,000 cash prize for a single work of imaginative fiction. The purpose of this prize is to draw attention to books of great artistic merit, but also to recognize writers who may not be household names yet or whose access to resources may be limited. We have only one prize a year to give, but today is really a celebration of 8 writers and 8 shortlist books. These writers have given us works of extraordinary imagination to enjoy and to consider. It's a lot of work putting this prize together every year, but no job is harder than that of the selection panel who must choose amongst those books a single recipient. This year's panel includes Matt Bell, Indra Das, Kelly Link, Sequoia Nagamatsu, and Rebecca Roanhorse. With all my heart, I thank these 5 writers for the love that they showed to the shortlist, for their obvious interest in the books, their close reading, their spirited debate, and the affection they have for both the books and their writers. And now I'm delighted to introduce our host, Ebon Moss-Bachrach, who will introduce us to the 8 shortlist nominees and tell us the recipient of the 2025 prize.
Thank you, Theo. One of the unusual things about this prize is that anyone can nominate a book. And this open approach is at the heart of the prize. And it's in keeping with the values of the writer for whom it's named, and produces a great breadth and diversity of nominations. So to the hundreds of readers and writers and librarians, booksellers, and publishing professionals who submitted nominations this year, thank you. This prize could not exist without you. The 2025 shortlist books reflect a thrillingly varied set of stories and ideas that were central to Ursula K. Le Guin's own work, exploring themes of justice, freedom, nonviolence, queerness, and humanity's relation to the natural world.
Fantasy can be morally extremely serious. Look at The Lord of the Rings. It's asking a huge moral question about power. The fantastic literature, of whatever kind, imaginative literature, can present you with alternatives to the way we do things or the way the world is. It can imagine a slightly different world where things work a little bit differently, a different society, different species, And so it's kind of a little bit like, in this sense, it's making a thought experiment, like physicists make, but it's also just challenging the reader, I think, and I think that's one reason young people particularly take to fantasy and science fiction, that they're always young readers. That's one great thing about writing imaginative literature. You always have young readers, every generation, because young people are aware that the world does not have to be the way the old folks made it. It is. There are alternatives. There are other ways to do things. Let's talk about them. So to me, that's kind of the particular virtue that these genres have over realistic fiction, which has to just say the way it really is.
These books offer us joy and hope. They allow us to imagine ways out of impossible situations, and they teach us how things are and how things aren't and how things ought to be. The 2025 shortlist is Rakesfall by Vajrachandra from Tor.com Publishing, Archangels of Funk by Andrea Hairston from Tor.com Publishing, Blackheart Man by Nala Hopkinson from Saga Press, The Sapling Cage by Margaret Killjoy from Feminist Press, The West Passage by Jared Pekacek from Tor.com Publishing, Remember You Will Die by Eden Robbins from Sourcebooks Landmark, The City in Glass by Niveau from Tor.com Publishing, and North Continent Ribbon by Ursula K from Neon Hemlock. This year's prize goes to a book that our selection panel described as groundbreaking, exhilarating, ambitious, and unforgettable. The 2025 Ursula K. Le Guin Prize for Fiction goes to Rakesfall by Vajra Chandrasekhara. Rakesfall takes place over the course of centuries as two characters move through eras and lives, recurring, coming together, coming apart, and seeking change. Revolutionary-minded and intricate, Rakesfall defies narrative expectations as it considers history, power, perspective, resistance, and the dread scale of myth and nightmare. Our selection panel said, as fluid and changing as water, Rakesfall funnels genre, narrative structures, characters, and our conception of time into a spiritual kaleidoscope. Vajra Chandrasekhara trusts us to follow, across the literary equivalent of light years, a deeply felt and moving story of grief, loss, and ultimately hope to savor in dark times. Like Le Guin, Chandrasekhara writes about colonialism and power with a kind of moral clarity and strength that speaks to the heart as well as to the mind. He has created a masterclass of the possibilities inherent in fiction. Rakesfall is an extraordinary achievement in science fiction and a titanic work of art.
I'm Vajra Chandrasekhara, and I wrote Rakesfall. I am honored and delighted to be the 2025 recipient of the Ursula K. Le Guin Prize for Fiction. Le Guin is special to us all, especially to writers in her tradition, because she's one of those rare writers that I think all of us love and would claim for our own, as influence, as elder, as northern star. So I'll say again how honored I am, how moved I am that my very strange work has a place in the history of this wonderful award in her name. Many thanks to everyone at the Le Guin Foundation for making the award happen so smoothly every year, to all award jurors past and present, especially this year for their excellent taste, to my fellow shortlistees for the privilege of their wonderful company, to everyone who nominates books for selection, and to everyone who reads books at all. Huge thanks also to my editor, Carl Engel-Laird, and everyone at Tor.com, and to my agent, Michael Curry at DMLA, for championing this very unlikely book into publication. My love and my thanks to my family and friends who have supported me and encouraged me as a writer since long before I had won or published anything. Most of all, my deepest thank you to my partner and the love of my life, Nandini Ramachandran, to whom this book is dedicated for good reason. Rakesfall is a book about power, and it talks about the arrogance and undeserved self-belief of the powerful, their bottomless desire for more power, more wealth, until they shamelessly strive not for only a throne, but godhood. This is actually the world we already live in, which is why our oligarchs are obsessed with longevity, AI, and transcending mere humanity. The late capitalist death drive is so perfected that it is not only willing but eager to sacrifice the real present in pursuit of an imaginary future. And the concepts they use to construct that imaginary come from a vocabulary and a grammar built by science fiction. This is a dangerous dynamic, but not a new one. We cannot forget that the originator of modern political Zionism, Theodor Herzl, first wrote The Occupation of Palestine as a science fiction novel 4 decades before the Nakba. The speculative genres are as fertile ground for monstrous imaginations as they are marvelous ones. There is nothing inherently liberatory in the imagination, but it must be made so. It is necessary to pay attention to what is being written, to what we're writing, and to what we're reading. We might read, for example, that a quote-unquote ceasefire has been declared, and yet the violence continues in Palestine. Genocide continues. There can only be a true peace when the occupation ends and democracy finally begins. When Gaza is not starved and besieged, when there is no apartheid, when the millions of Palestinians in exile can return home, when the 10,000 political prisoners in Israeli prisons, thousands of them held without charge, hundreds of them children, are freed. Anything short of this is only a change in the tempo of genocide. That this colonial project endures is the shame of the world, and most especially of the long British-American Empire that created it and sustains it to this day. Without that imperial military and financial support year in and year out, it wouldn't exist, and Palestine will be free. When it happens, People will say, I didn't think the world would change so fast, but it can, and it will. I know people of conscience around the world are struggling with crises and appeals for mutual aid on all sides in our ever more openly fascist era. But if you are at all able, please donate to the Samir Project, an aid initiative led by Palestinians in the diaspora to supply emergency shelter and aid to displaced families in Gaza. You can find them on Instagram or Linktree at the Samir Project. That's SAMEER, the Samir Project. I am and shall always remain extremely grateful for your love for my work. Thank you for reading. I'll see you on the page.
Congratulations, Vadra. Congratulations. Thank you for giving us this book. And thanks to all of you for viewing today and for helping us to celebrate these books and these writers. If you haven't already, I hope you join me in exploring all these books. And please don't forget to support the prize in 2026 by nominating a book. Making space for these voices has never been more important. So thank you again, and happy reading.